The Doomsday Clock. It can't predict the end, but it can influence it. A symbolic warning, or a self-fulfilling prophecy. Is this clock saving us, or driving us to disaster? Humanity has always peered into the abyss. From ancient prophecies etched in stone to modern anxieties plastered across our screens, the spectre of the end holds a morbid fascination. This isn't mere morbid curiosity, it's a primal urge to understand our place in the cosmos, to grapple with our mortality. The very word apocalypse originates from the Greek apocalypsis, meaning revelation, and unveiling. But somewhere along the way, revelation morphed into ruin. Consider the Millerites of the 19th century, followers of William Miller, who meticulously calculated the second coming. When their predicted date of 1844 arrived and passed, a moment known as the Great Disappointment, it triggered widespread social upheaval and a frantic re-evaluation of apocalyptic timelines. This illustrates a point: the allure of a definitive end can be powerful. In our modern era, this fascination takes a different form. It's quantified, visualized, and presented as a scientific assessment. This is where the Doomsday Clock enters the picture. Born in 1947, in the shadow of atomic warfare, it wasn't conceived as a literal timer counting down to destruction. Instead, it was a symbolic warning from the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, initially set at 7 minutes to midnight, a reflection of the nuclear anxieties gripping a post-war world. The hands of the clock have moved both forward and backward over the decades, responding not to divine decree, but to the shifting sands of global politics and technological advancement. Before we delve into its depths, what's your gut feeling about this Doomsday Clock? Subscribe for more unraveling. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. The chilling dawn of the atomic age. In 1945, as the spectre of mushroom clouds still haunted the collective memory, a group of scientists, deeply affected by their creation, convened at the University of Chicago. These were not detached observers, they were the architects of the atomic bomb, the very individuals who had unlocked the awesome power of nuclear fission within the clandestine Manhattan Project. Names like Eugene Rabinowitz and Hyman Goldsmith, burdened by the profound implications of their work, spearheaded the formation of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Their aim was stark and urgent: to inform the world of the unprecedented peril humanity now faced. 2 years later, in 1947, the Bulletin sought a potent visual representation of this existential threat. Enter Martha Langsdorff, an artist whose husband, Alexander, had also toiled within the Manhattan Project. Commissioned to design the Bulletin's cover, Langsdorff conceived of a simple, yet terrifyingly effective symbol: a clock. Not just any clock, but one perpetually poised on the brink of midnight. Hyman Barahel, the Bulletin's editor, immediately recognized the power of this stark image. It was a visceral metaphor, instantly conveying the hair-trigger urgency of the nuclear threat. Initially, the hands were set at 7 minutes to midnight. A seemingly arbitrary number, yet it served as a constant, silent alarm, a persistent reminder of impending catastrophe. But the illusion of relative safety was tragically short-lived. In 1949, the Soviet Union detonated its first atomic bomb, shattering the American nuclear monopoly. The world had entered a new, terrifying era of mutually assured destruction. The Bulletin responded swiftly, moving the clock's hands to 3 minutes to midnight. A stark, quantifiable expression of escalating global tension, the clock was no longer just a symbol, it was rapidly becoming a barometer of humanity's proximity to self-annihilation. From the heart of the Manhattan Project, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists emerged, seeking to capture the world's attention with a stark visual metaphor. Hyman Goldsmith, a physicist who understood intimately the terrifying force they had unleashed, proposed a clock, no ordinary timepiece, but a measure of impending doom. It wasn't a calculation, a precise equation delivering a doomsday forecast. It was, as those who lived through it described, a gut feeling, a chilling premonition born from the escalating Cold War and the horrifying vision of a world devoid of atomic energy oversight. These were scientists, men and women who had peered into the very core of matter, unlocking its devastating potential. They grasped the science, yes, but also the treacherous landscape of politics, the pervasive paranoia, and humanity's all-too-familiar capacity for catastrophic misjudgment. Their dread extended beyond the bombs themselves. It was fueled by the absence of control, the chilling certainty that nations, driven by fear and insatiable ambition, would relentlessly pursue the same destructive power. A nuclear arms race wasn't a mere possibility, it loomed as an inescapable certainty. The clock, therefore, transcended the realm of scientific instruments. It was a desperate cry, a stark visual embodiment of the scientists' profound moral burden, a means of translating the complex realities of nuclear physics and perilous international relations into a single, universally understood image. Time is running out. The Doomsday Clock, a symbolic sentinel of global catastrophe, began its somber watch in 1947, poised 7 minutes before the fateful stroke of midnight. Born not from cold, hard data, but from the disquiet brewing within the scientific community after the unleashing of atomic power, it serves as a barometer, measuring perceived global stability rather than predicting immediate annihilation. By 1953, the hand surged forward, halting a mere 2 minutes from midnight. This alarming shift wasn't due to a singular incident, but to the spiraling thermonuclear arms race. The United States and the Soviet Union both detonated hydrogen bombs, weapons dwarfing the destructive power of those used in World War II. Here, the clock mirrored a fundamental change in the nature of the threat, the progression from atomic to the vastly more potent hydrogen weaponry. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, a harrowing 13-day standoff that brought the world to the knife's edge, finds no explicit mention in the clock's historical record. However, it is plausible the bulletin of the atomic scientists addressed it implicitly in their discussions around that time. The crisis laid bare the perilous fragility of deterrence and the very real specter of accidental nuclear war, a chilling concept meticulously dissected in game theory simulations of the time. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 ushered in an era of tentative optimism. The signing of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, START-I, signaled a significant drawdown of nuclear arsenals. In response, the clock retreated to a record 17 minutes to midnight. This wasn't simply about fewer warheads, it reflected a perceived transformation in geopolitical ideology, a move away from the grim calculus of mutually assured destruction and towards collaborative engagement. The year 2007 marked a pivotal turning point. For the first time, the bulletin explicitly integrated climate change into its calculations, alongside the ever-present danger of nuclear weapons. This broadened the clock's scope, acknowledging that existential threats stretched far beyond immediate military conflict. The inclusion of climate change underscored the recognition of long-term, systemic risks imperiling human civilization. In 2020, the clock advanced to an unprecedented 100 seconds to midnight. The bulletin cited a convergence of alarming factors: escalating nuclear risks, the accelerating climate crisis, and the insidious proliferation of disinformation campaigns. This emphasized the growing understanding that threats to global security were increasingly complex, encompassing not only physical destruction, but also the erosion of trust and the manipulation of public opinion. As of 2023, the clock remains a tense 90 seconds to midnight. This persistent proximity to doomsday is not a prophecy, but a stark and urgent warning. It reflects the bulletin's sober assessment that global threats are not only persisting, but intensifying, demanding immediate and unified action. The clock stands as a stark, ever-present reminder that complacency is simply not an option. Beyond the shadow of nuclear winter, once the sole specter haunting the bulletin's calculations, a broader darkness has emerged. In 2007, climate change entered the equation, its catastrophic potential deemed comparable to nuclear annihilation, adding a new dimension to our fears. By 2015, the bulletin explicitly linked these twin threats, nuclear weapons and a destabilizing climate, as the gravest dangers confronting humankind. This expansion reflects a crucial evolution in perspective. The Science and Security Board, the body responsible for setting the clock, now includes experts in fields far beyond nuclear physics. Climate scientists, specialists in infectious diseases, and authorities on artificial intelligence contribute their expertise, painting a more complete, and more alarming, picture of existential risk. The digital age introduces its own nightmares. Since 2019, the bulletin has explicitly addressed the dangers of disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence and bioweapons. The potential for misuse, the specter of unintended consequences, looms large, casting a long shadow over the future. The bulletin doesn't operate in isolation. Its annual statements frequently highlight the findings of authoritative bodies like the IPCC and the WHO, grounding its pronouncements in rigorous scientific analysis. Its website serves as a vital repository of information, a compendium of analysis on pandemics, cybersecurity threats, the erosion of democracy, and a spectrum of other global risks. The Doomsday Clock, therefore, is no longer solely a gauge of nuclear tension. It is a barometer of civilization's capacity to manage a multitude of interconnected crises, a challenge that grows more complex and more urgent with each passing year. But does this iconic countdown truly possess genuine predictive power, or is it, as some contend, merely a sophisticated reflection of our collective anxieties? The clock's pronouncements have certainly faced their share of detractors. Even within the scientific community, voices have questioned its validity. In 1973, Nobel laureate Hans Alfvén resigned from the Bulletin's board, a stark protest against what he perceived as propagandistic manipulation. This sentiment resonates in later critiques. Physicist Robert Park argued that the clock's settings were not rooted in objective scientific analysis, but rather driven by subjective interpretations and political motivations. The very act of assigning a numerical proximity to global annihilation, some argue, is inherently simplistic, failing to capture the intricate interplay of factors that shapes our world's trajectory. For years, the Bulletin faced criticism for what some saw as a myopic focus on nuclear threats, neglecting other existential risks looming on the horizon. Climate change, the potential for devastating pandemics, and the unforeseen consequences of emerging technologies were, for a time, relegated to the periphery of the clock's concern. Furthermore, critics point to the timing of the clock's adjustments. Often, these shifts seem to coincide with major geopolitical events, or the ebb and flow of media cycles, suggesting a reactive rather than a genuinely predictive function. Is the clock anticipating danger, or simply responding to anxieties already amplified in the public consciousness? The question remains, is the glass half empty? Or are we perhaps more resilient than the clock suggests? Psychologist Steven Pinker, for example, challenges the clock's consistently pessimistic outlook, arguing that, despite the very real dangers we face, humanity is, statistically speaking, living in the most peaceful era in its history. And even when events seem to warrant optimism, the clock's response can be puzzling. Following the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, a landmark agreement aimed at curbing nuclear proliferation, some questioned why the clock remained stubbornly fixed at 3 minutes to midnight. Shouldn't this diplomatic achievement have warranted a more positive adjustment? Internal debates, too, have cast a shadow of doubt. Academic Lawrence Krauss publicly voiced his disagreement with some of the clock's pronouncements, revealing a divide even among those entrusted with its stewardship. These dissenting voices underscore a fundamental question: is the Doomsday Clock a scientific instrument, or a powerful, albeit subjective, expression of our deepest fears? Imagine a world ablaze not in a sudden, dramatic explosion, but in a slow, insidious creep of flames fueled by decades of apathy. We call it a simulation, but for millions, it's already a brutal reality. Consider the cold, hard data, the stark, unforgiving projections. By 2100, under our current path, global mean sea level could rise by nearly a meter. A seemingly small shift, yet one poised to redraw coastlines and displace communities on an unimaginable scale. Picture Jakarta, a megacity sinking under its own immense weight, succumbing to the relentless advance of the rising tides. This is a direct consequence of unsustainable groundwater extraction, exacerbated by a relentlessly warming planet. Already, parts of the city are subsiding at a horrifying rate of 25 centimeters each year, a death sentence for countless low-lying neighborhoods. Now, shift continents to the American West, where wildfires of unprecedented intensity rage unchecked. A chilling study reveals that human-caused climate change has doubled the area burned since 1984, turning vast landscapes into infernos. Recall the Camp Fire of 2018, a name that now echoes with devastation. Paradise, California, utterly consumed, reduced to ash and sorrow. 85 lives extinguished. 19,000 structures obliterated. This was not an anomaly, a freak occurrence. It was a chilling harbinger of things to come. Think back to 2003, when Europe sweltered under a merciless heat wave, a silent, invisible killer that claimed over 70,000 lives. France alone mourned nearly 15,000 victims. The elderly, the vulnerable, succumbed to the suffocating heat, unseen and unheard. And eastward, remember the scorched earth of Russia in 2010. 11,000 perished in Moscow alone, suffocated by the oppressive heat and acrid smoke. The devastating ripple effect. A crippled wheat harvest, soaring global food prices, and hunger spreading like a plague. These are not isolated incidents, disconnected events. They are interconnected threads in a rapidly unraveling tapestry of ecological destruction. A study chillingly estimates that sea level rise alone could displace up to 153 million people by 2100, with Asia bearing the overwhelming brunt. The numbers are not abstract, not mere statistics. They represent real lives, cherished homes, stolen futures. The Doomsday Clock may not pinpoint the exact moment of ultimate catastrophe, but these simulated scenarios, these increasingly frequent and devastating real-world disasters, serve as a visceral, gut-wrenching reminder of what's at stake. They are a desperate call to action, a demand for a fundamental paradigm shift, before the simulation becomes our irreversible, inescapable reality. The Doomsday Clock, born in 1947 from the atomic age's deep-seated anxieties, was conceived by the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Initially, its focus was a singular, terrifying threat: nuclear annihilation. But the world, and the dangers it holds, evolved. In 2007, the clock's calculations broadened, acknowledging a new, insidious force: climate change. Now, it teeters perpetually close to midnight: 90 seconds. A symbolic precipice held steady in both 2023 and 2024. The reasons: a volatile and dangerous mix of nuclear saber-rattling in Ukraine, the relentless creep of climate change, and the ever-present specter of biological threats. The Science and Security Board, the brilliant minds behind the clock, grapple with these complex issues. These experts in nuclear risk, climate science, and disruptive technologies represent a powerful confluence of scientific perspectives. Yet, the clock isn't without its critics. Subjectivity and an oversimplification of intricate global dynamics are valid concerns. But to dismiss the Doomsday Clock as mere alarmism is to fundamentally misunderstand its true power. Its value lies not in its predictive accuracy, but in its profound symbolic resonance. It is a global Rorschach test, reflecting our deepest fears and anxieties back at us, forcing us to confront them. Consider this: the Doomsday Clock consistently garners headlines worldwide. Major news outlets report its pronouncements with regularity. This widespread recognition, this constant presence in the global conversation, is not accidental. It is a testament to the clock's enduring ability to capture the public imagination and hold it captive. More importantly, it sparks action. Public opinion surveys reveal a crucial link: awareness of the Doomsday Clock directly correlates with increased concern about global threats. This concern, in turn, translates into tangible support for policy changes. Individuals, informed and engaged, demand action from their leaders. They advocate tirelessly for arms control, for climate mitigation, for responsible technological development. The Doomsday Clock, therefore, is far more than just a clock. It is a call to action, resonating across the globe, a stark reminder that the future is not predetermined, not set in stone. It is a future we are actively building, second by agonizing second. And the closer we creep to midnight, the louder, the more insistent, that call must become, until it can no longer be ignored. 90 seconds. 90 seconds to midnight. The Doomsday Clock, stalled at its most precarious position ever, serves not as a precise calculation, but as a stark and unsettling reflection. It is a mirror, meticulously polished by the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, reflecting our deepest collective anxieties back at us. The decision, rendered in January 2023, to maintain this perilous setting was not arbitrary. Consider the seismic geopolitical tremors emanating from Eastern Europe. The war in Ukraine, though geographically contained, pulsates with the potential for nuclear escalation, a chilling testament to the enduring fragility of international peace. A single miscalculation, a catastrophic cascade of errors, and the unthinkable shifts from improbable to chillingly plausible. Yet, the specter of nuclear annihilation is not the only phantom haunting the clock. Turn your gaze skyward, feel the unsettling shift in the winds. Climate change has ceased to be a distant threat, it is a tangible, present reality. Record-shattering temperatures, glacial melt accelerating beyond even the most dire projections, extreme weather events becoming distressingly commonplace. Key planetary systems, such as ocean currents and biodiversity, are showing signs of unprecedented strain. These crises, however, do not exist in isolation. The bulletin's analysis meticulously factors in the insidious erosion of international cooperation, the unraveling of established norms, and the deliberate dissemination of disinformation, all serving to amplify existing dangers. Trust, the bedrock of global security, is being systematically undermined. Recall the early days of 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic, a microscopic organism bringing the world to its knees, exposed critical vulnerabilities, highlighted the woeful unpreparedness of even the most advanced nations, and chillingly foreshadowed the potential for future biological threats to destabilize societies on a scale previously unimaginable. The UN Secretary-General's stark warning reverberates through the halls of power. Humanity is just one misunderstanding, one miscalculation away from nuclear annihilation. These are not the incendiary words of a radical, but the grave pronouncement of the world's leading diplomat, expressing a profound and urgent concern. Finally, consider the double-edged sword of technological advancement. Artificial intelligence, while holding immense potential for good, also unleashes unprecedented risks: autonomous weapons systems, algorithmic bias, the ever-present potential for misuse and manipulation. Are we erecting safeguards swiftly enough to outpace these escalating dangers? The clock's hands advance or retreat based on a complex calculus, a synthesis of rigorous scientific assessment and stark geopolitical realities. It is not prophecy, but a piercing warning, a resounding call to action, an urgent plea for reason in an increasingly irrational world. It demands that we confront these anxieties, not with paralyzing despair, but with resolute and determined action. The Doomsday Clock, conceived from the atomic anxieties of scientists in 1947, isn't a fortune-telling device, it's a barometer, measuring the precarious temperature of global security. Initially set at 7 minutes to midnight, its movements echo pivotal moments in our shared history. The Soviet Union's atomic test in 1949 plunged it to a harrowing 3 minutes. The furthest it has ever retreated, a hopeful 17 minutes, followed the START I Treaty, a powerful testament to the potential of de-escalation. But the clock's fluctuations are not prophecies etched in stone. Instead, they are illuminated warnings, urging us to look closer. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists meticulously analyzes a complex web of threats. They understand that these existential risks demand more than mere observation, they demand action. Consider the very nature of time, a human construct, a framework we impose upon the ceaseless flow of existence. The clock, therefore, is a distinctly human interpretation of our own self-made predicament. It distills complex scientific data, stark geopolitical realities, and emerging threats into a single, resonant image, instantly understood. The chilling 90 seconds to midnight, the closest we've ever been, is not a countdown to inevitable doom. It is a gauntlet thrown, a challenge to our collective will. The bulletin states plainly the Doomsday Clock is a call to action, not a prediction of doom. Its purpose is not to paralyze us with fear, but to galvanize us into action, to foster open dialogue, to promote deeper understanding, and to demand responsible leadership from those who guide us. The clock's true and enduring power lies not in any mystical ability to predict the future, but in its profound capacity to shape it. It is a symbolic mirror, reflecting our own choices, our own potential, and urging us, with unwavering insistence, to strive for a more sustainable, more peaceful, and ultimately, more hopeful tomorrow. The Doomsday Clock is not a literal predictor of global catastrophe, but a powerful, albeit imperfect, communication tool that reflects the anxieties of its creators and the changing geopolitical landscape. Its value lies in sparking conversations and influencing policy, not in its predictive accuracy. So, considering the multifaceted threats facing humanity, do you believe the Doomsday Clock is an effective tool for raising awareness and inspiring action, or does it simply amplify anxieties without offering concrete solutions? Share your thoughts in the comments below.